Beginner Laser Project 21. A while back here I made this shot glass flight and files you could download for it, and I had a few requests. That's cool. Can you do a beer flight? Oh, you betcha. So in this video we're going to make a beer flight. Holds 4 glasses, and we'll get into the details of what size glasses, etc. The ones that are in here now are rather heavy. That's why I'm using both hands, because they're very, very heavy glass. I think regular Pilsner glasses would be a little bit easier to hold with one hand. Yeah, like that. So you'd want to use lighter glasses, but these were all I could find really quick that matched, that I could put forward in a flight. So if I take the glasses out, I can get a closer look. The top layer is made out of a cedar fence picket that you can get at your local home store. You'll need to look for one preferably without a whole bunch of knots in the area you're going to be cutting out, and you'll need to sand it or plane it or do whatever to make it smooth, because they are rough sawn, but it makes a very, very nice finish. What you see in here are some cork inserts. We'll get into that later here in the assembly. And the back is a piece of 1/8" plywood, and then these are all glued together. Then we do some routing and staining and sanding and all that kind of good stuff. But get you onto the computer here and I'll show you what's all involved in getting one of these laid out for your laser, because you're going to have to cut the fence picket at an angle unless you have a long format laser. Okay, here we are in light burn, and as you can see, the is set at an angle, because you'll need to have a piece, I believe that's 19 inches or so long. It's better to go a little bit longer and get the longest piece you can on your laser bed. I'm using the longer B1 here, and this is kind of a hard thing to frame if you're not real familiar with how all this stuff works. But one of the things you can do, and I'm going to go to the cuts and layers, this is what I call the top layer. So turn your speed up to 1000, turn the power down to 2%, and then do a single pass. And then if you start this, except you need to turn the laser on first. Now you'll hear some background noise. Now I can start this and it'll follow the path of how it will be cutting with a very, very dim beam on it, and you'll be able to see if you need to adjust your material or not. I know you can't see what's going on the laser here, but that is how you establish that you have your piece at the right angle. Of course, if you have a wide piece of wood, that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but when you're working with something that's only 5 1/4 inches wide, there is some cutoffs on each side of this, but you want to make sure you have the right angle on your bed. Okay, for the actual cut, I need to turn this back up to 100% power, doing 1000 millimeters per minute at 100% power, 4 passes. This makes a very nice clean cut. Yes, you could go at a slower speed and fewer passes, but the cut won't be quite as clean, and there'll be a little bit more scorching even with air assist and a honeycomb board. So all I would need to do now is hit start. But before I do that, I want to show you the bottom layer, which is actually called the base layer, or layer 1. So this is your base layer, and that'll be cut out of 1/8" plywood. And again, you can do that framing by turning your power way down to 2% over here, and then just running it to make sure it'll be on the material. Here we're doing 700 millimeters per minute at 75% power and 1 pass, and that on this longer B1, that more than does it fine. Okay, the final part, and this is optional whether you want to use this or not, is the cork inserts. And I've just done one, and you can use some craft cork, and you'll see it here later on in the video. Adhesive backed, just cut the circle out. This is slightly smaller than the hole in the beer flight. That gives a little space around the outside of the cork if there's condensation, for the condensation to run down into, so that the bottom of the glass doesn't become a suction cup on the cork and you have a hard time picking it up. So got that little bit of gap around there. So we'll get back to doing our top layer. And back to the other camera. Okay, as you saw in the on the computer there, this material has to be in there at an angle in order for it to fit on your bed. You'll need you basically need a bed that's 400 millimeter by 400 millimeter, that's 15 3/4 inches square. If you have a extended format laser, for example, I have an X-Tool D1 that has a long format, I could have just put this piece in there straight, which is what I did on the original I made, but I thought since most people don't have that, I would set this up to be able to do it on a regular non-extended laser. You will be to the advantage if you use a honeycomb board and air assist. Both of those things will help greatly in this cut. So as you saw there in the when I was on the computer, I had framed this, I should say did a mock cut with the power turned way down low. So what we're going to do now is do the actual cut. And it'll cut the circles first. And speaking of circles, you can measure your beer glasses or whatever glasses you're going to use, measure the base diameter, and you can always change the diameter of that cutout. Of course, we won't video the whole cutout here. So how long does it take to do this? It takes 8 minutes and 2 seconds to do that complete cut. We'll come back to this. If you're using a different type of wood, let's say you want to make this out of cherry or walnut, you will need to obviously adjust the number of passes you're going to make, because that harder wood will not cut quite as quick as a soft wood like this cedar will. So kind of keep that in mind. You'll need to do some tests on a piece to see how many passes you'll need. This, of course, does make smoke, so make sure you're in a well-ventilated area or you have an enclosure over it with an exhaust fan. I have the shop door open and I have a fan on behind me, so I don't even smell this, but I can see it's making a lot of smoke. Okay, this is coming around on its final pass here, and then it'll go home. And I want to show you something that you'll need to check before you take your project off of there without moving it. Put your fingers on this so it doesn't move, and make sure that this will come off, and I can see it isn't, so I need to make one more pass. That's why you do that, so that you're not picking it up and find out it didn't come all the way through, and then you're trying to figure out what to do. So I'll set this back up to make one more pass. Okay, we'll check it here after that extra pass. Still have a little spot holding on somewhere. Well, I'll show you what we'll do to fix that. We'll take the round pieces out here. So you can see we've got a couple places there where the grain was a little different. All you need is a razor knife. You'll be able to see the line. All you need to do is follow the line. I think if I would have done one more pass, I wouldn't have had that problem there. So you'll end up with some little slivery things like this, but we're going to be sanding this so those will sand right off. Okay, for the base layer, I'm using 1/8 inch plywood, and this is from Home Depot, and it comes with 4x8 sheets, and I cut them down. You can either use this side here or you can use this side here. I will have this side here facing the back because it has kind of a neat grain. So you're going to need to do the same kind of thing here with trying to get all this lined up so that everything works with your project and then it hits the wood. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn the power down to 2%, and I'm going to do a mock run, and I can see if I need to make any adjustments. So turn my power down to 2%, and we'll do a start here and see where it's going to be. It's going to run off my board down here. I'll move this up here. Of course, I'll run that again here. Okay, I'm good to go right there. So you just hit start. Well, I don't know if there was a void in that piece of plywood or what, but boy, I had a little poof when it passed over that spot right there. Take these pieces off, and there is our bottom layer right there, and this will be the side that will be down. Yeah, and my top layer piece here, I did a little bit of light sanding on it there, just kind of clean this up, get this somewhat smooth. It's down to 120. Just hit the sides real quick. It's not a finished sand at all, so you can still see some of the black. If you wish to leave the black on, you certainly can. But for the way I want to finish this, that'll end up getting sanded off. So what I want to do now, and this is also optional, is I want to put a round over inside where the glasses will sit, but just on one side. And then after the whole thing is assembled, I'll come back and I'll do a round over on both sides so we don't have any sharp edges. So I'll take this over to my little router table over here and round these over first. And I'm doing it before I put the back layer on, because if I don't, the pilot bearing on there will actually stick up past the surface and I don't get a good finish. It will also scar up my top layer. I should say my bottom layer, but it would be at the top because it's upside down. No, it's still the bottom. To the router table. This gives us a lot smoother finish here. You don't have any kind of sharp edge. And as I said, I'll be doing around all the outside edges here too after we have this assembled. So what's next? Some assembly required. It's not that tough. Okay, for the glue up, I'm using Tight Bond Quick and Thick. This is very thick and it dries very fast. Well, it's not as fast as CA glue, but it's quick enough that you don't have to wait like 24 hours or anything for it to dry. So now what I want to do here is put some glue on this after I get it down to the bottom of the bottle. What you don't want is any squeeze out to come out the holes. If it comes out the outside, that's fine because we're going to sand this. We definitely don't want any squeeze out inside those holes. That'd be very, very difficult to sand out of there. And stain does not stick to glue. Of course, I'm putting the glue on the bottom side of the top layer. Now you need to spread that around, and I'm going to use the same method as James King uses on his channel of King's Fried Woodworking. And if you've never checked that out, you should. The Ninja method. Spread this around and making sure that I do not get too close to those round openings because I don't want any squeeze out in them. Instead of we have squeeze out on the outside edges, that's fine. It is important to get close to those outside edges so that your other layer won't want to try to peel. You need to work fairly quickly with this because it does set up fairly fast. You can't be dawdling, as they say. Okay, once you get your glue applied there, you can put your bottom layer on. And of course I'm using this side to face the bottom because I like the way it looks. Let's get that lined up everywhere. Get it into place. Now you need to clamp that, or as I'm going to do, put a 50-pound box of nails on top of it until everything is dry. You want to make sure you're lined up everywhere. Obviously you could also use clamps, but that box of nails was close by. Okay, glue's dry, set up. I sanded, just rough sanded the outside edges of this all the way around. So now I'm going to take it to the router table over here, the little router table, and put a 1/4 inch round over around all of the outside edges. That puts some nice rounded edges on this so there's nothing sharp. Now I'll take this and sand it again. I'm going to start with 120 and I'll work my way up to 220 before I put the finish on. Okay, so got this sanded to 220 and I'll need to take tack cloth to it yet, of course, before I put my stain on. This is the finished one, and this is a stain I'm using. It's Minwax penetrating stain, and the color of this would have to be red oak. I like the dark color and the way it brings out the grain and the cedar. So I'm going to get set up here, get some gloves on, and get to staining. Okay, if you've never used oil-based penetrating stain before, you put it on very heavy and let it soak in and let it sit for a little while. Then you take another rag and you wipe off the excess. This being such a small project, and I'm only doing one here, I'm actually going to use a blue shop towel. I'm not even going to get a rag out. These work real well for this. So it's just a matter of dipping that in or getting a pretty good jagged stain on it. The excess strip off. I'm going to start out by doing my glass openings. And get down in there good. Make sure you don't miss anything because it'll sure show up later. I'm going to do my end grain down here while this is still soaked up real well, because end grain absorbs a lot of stain. And then I'll just work my way down the line. Don't forget the hanger hole. Wad your rag or your towel up a little bit. Get some in each side of it. And we'll get the back side. Give it a look-see here and make sure we didn't miss any spots. Get them corners good. Check that end grain. Now we'll just let that set for a couple minutes, and then we'll wipe off the excess. Okay, after it's set for a while, just take another a rag like an old t-shirt, or in my case a shop towel, and just wipe it down. Any excess that's on there. You don't need a scrub on it, you just need to kind of wipe off any excess that's hanging out, like what you see there. So there we are. Need to let the stain dry. You'll need to let that stain dry for at least 24 hours. Let it dry overnight before you try to put any kind of finish on it. This here is finished with clear lacquer. You definitely want to put a finish on it because it needs to have some water resistance. You can use polyacrylic, you can use polyurethane. As I said, I used a gloss lacquer on this because I was doing another project and already had some mixed up. That one there I will probably do a polyurethane on, and because I don't have another project to do lacquer on right now. But the cork inserts here, I am out of the sheet cork. I went to the Dollar Tree yesterday and they were out of it. Usually get this little 12-inch square sheets of cork underneath the back. There's a file in the file package for cutting those circles out, and then you just peel the adhesive off the back and you stick them down in the holes. So I don't really need to show that. That's pretty simple. I'll probably order some more because we use quite a bit of it. You could also use cork coaster backs, you know, the 4-inch square or 4-inch round, and just cut out what you need. Okay, so there's how to make a beer flight. And as I said, you can always size those holes according to which glasses you have. And as you can see here, got kind of an example. I'll have to figure out what to do with this beer. I think I got a pretty good idea, so I turn that camera off. Somebody might have sampled that one. I think I know who that was. So that's all there is to it. I know it can be a little bit tricky setting a piece up at an angle on a laser like that, but as you can see, it works. And again, do some tests on whatever type of wood you're using, and make sure you check, especially on the thicker material, to make sure you cut all the way through before you move that project. Because as you saw, that particular piece of wood probably could have used a 6 pass. I only did 5 on it because I did that 1 extra pass, and I still had a couple little spots where it didn't cut through. And that happens. It's very, very common because of the different grain patterns in wood and different densities in different parts of the wood. So don't think you had a failure because it didn't cut all the way through. And if you are just almost all the way through, you can use the razor knife like I showed. There'll be a package for this, light burn files. There'll be a link in the description where you can download that from our website. No charge, it's free. The cedar planks, actually they're cedar fence pickets, and they came from a home store we have here called Menards. But you know, places like Lowe's or Home Depot, they will probably have those too. You will need to do some sanding on them, and you will need to get a pretty smooth finish on there unless you want to rough looking beer flight. That's up to you. Beauty's in the eye of the beer holder. Cheers. Ah, yes. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. I'm Roger in the shop. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Okay, so here's an extra after the video as I'm partaking in these. Somebody I know is going to ask, what kind of beers are those? None of them are mainstream. There's no Bud Light or anything like that. This first one here was Dos Equis, the green bottle, not the Ambar. This one here is another Cerveza Mexicana. It's called Carta Blanca. This one here is Goose Island 312, which is a craft beer made here in Illinois. And this one is called Cherry Bomb Blonde, and it is a craft beer that is made in Davenport, Iowa, which is in this local area here. And I really like this one, so I'm saving that one for last. But yes, I like all of these. And beer flights are for serving up samples. Okay, just a little extra. I got to finish these off before they get warm.